All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So this afternoon, 1 o'clock, Harry Posen with Label & Company. Harry is one of our MSRED advisory board members, has been for a number of years, and he's going to talk a little bit about Project Centra, but also he has a background, a pretty diverse background in the construction and real estate development industry. So with that, turn it over to Harry.
How are you?
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First of all, I prefer to do it like on a more informal, ask questions, interactive basis. So we'll start with, and Jessica's here. Jessica was actually my mentee in the program, what, 3-4 years ago?
I graduated 4
So
years ago.
I take a lot of pleasure because now she's presenting, you know, so it's come full circle. And actually we've got some really good alumni, which to me speaks well for the program. Just so I get a sense, how many of you are in real estate practicing some place in the industry now? Oh, so mostly. A little bit. And then how many like residential? Some sort of residential, commercial, you know, office, retail, industrial. Any in brokerage? How many in brokerage? Okay. And then as we go through it, like any other aspects of market or financing, it doesn't have to be relative to this particular project because it all sort of fits together. Feel free to ask those questions during the process or how the markets have changed, et cetera. By the way, one question we were talking about lunch. Would you guys prefer to be here in Las Olas or back on the main campus? Main campus, raise your hand. Las Olas, raise your hand.
Indifferent.
Indifferent? Ask it, yeah.
Also, one thing I want to point out is I don't think anybody here has had their classes on the main campus, so that's.
Oh, yes, yeah, you only know this area.
shift the view.
How many of you guys are girls are from Miami? You know, or south of here? And how many from, let's say, north of the main campus? That's all, that's good.
I'm right down the block. So
You're easy, yeah. So you like it here?
I love it.
Okay, the project that we're going to talk about, it's Jessica's now heard it about 3 times. Fred's heard it once or twice. It was a project that was, well, that I got involved with in 2009. It was closed out in 2013. Why I think it makes a good case study, regardless of where you are in the cycle, and probably makes more sense as we were moving up in the cycle than because it takes you through the whole life cycle of a project and underscores a lot of the pitfalls that we sometimes forget in the up markets that can occur when markets change, and why it's important. And it really is, and the lessons don't really matter whether they're residential or office or retail. In my opinion, it's like going in with a what I call a fortress type of financial structure. So when the downturn occurs, you can withstand the downturn. You know, basically I've been in a home building my whole life. And actually when I went to school, I studied construction management at Pratt in New York. I know my buddy here is from Queens. And I did my thesis on home building, public and private, because that was right after, it was in the 70s. But it was right after the first wave of joint ventures and acquisitions and IPOs of home building, which seem to happen every cycle, and then the first bust and fallout and everything else. So it's, at each cycle, we have a different set of heroes and a different set of bums. You know, like, if you go back to the SNL debacle, usually the home builders are the bums. In 91, 92, the commercial guys were the bums. You know, in home building, we came through relatively unscathed. And then we had that boom that everyone knows about. I don't need to spend much time on that. And home builders, we made up for not being the bums in 91, 92. Like, you know, it was the most devastation our sector of the industry has seen post-World War II, what we'll call the modern home building era. But if you look back, you know, even in South Florida, because it's the same relative across the country, but so we can relate to South Florida, there's only a few companies over the 40, 50 years that have really weathered the storm, and it's immaterial whether they're public or private. Home building, the names tend to change a lot. Even in commercial, you saw it, a lot of the big guys from the 80s and 90s are no longer around. But the strong companies, and regardless of the sector, tend to have one thing in common. It's a conservative financial structure. You know, Terry, you know, Stiles, who we did the joint venture here with, his company is what, 50, 55, 60 years old. You know, and he's got it done properly. You know, you look back here, my old company, Minto, I was president of Minto, you know, it's now going to be 60 years also, actually this year. Lennar is roughly around 55, 60 years as well, and related, weathered their big storm and is back on top. So there's a lot of wannabes, there's a lot of guys, like even on my new project that I'm doing now, which is the third generation of this, you know, certain people say, well, why aren't you showing higher returns? I said, well, if you want to guarantee the loan, you can show higher returns and put more leverage on the project. But unless you're going to convince me of when there's no downturn or when the downturn comes, like in our world, if you look at home building, if you look at the returns on equity of the public companies, because you know the privates, but it averages over the long term 14, 15%. Yeah, it's a little bit more in the up years sometimes, but then you got to take into account the down cycles. So that's what you got to plan for. On this particular site, how do I turn this thing? What do I hit for it?
It's on.
No, but how do I turn the pages? I mean, remember, I'm an old guy. I'm not young like these guys. Well, this.
Should be, I think, this one.
Oh, there you go. Just on the left click?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How do I go back?
I think that's right.
Oh, previous. Oh, yeah, I see, I see. You know, it takes us a little while. We're not as proficient as you guys. Any of you live up in Palm Beach?
Used to.
Okay. So this, and we've done this with the Nova Group and ULI quite a few times. This was a presentation that was put together, I guess, around 2010 probably.
Yes.
We first gave it. And then we were building it, so we had the whole class to the site and everything else. And it worked out really well. The three basic partners or main players in this deal, obviously Terry Stiles, the Stiles Group that owned the land, Label and Company, which is my company. I was president of Minto and ran it for 25 years. I left Minto at the end of 2008. I formed my own company. It's a Label and Company. And if you recall, 2009 wasn't maybe the best time to start a home building company. Like the market was pretty bad. But I was here and it worked out and did quite a few things. And I'll tell you the story. And then Bank of America which had the underlying loan on the property. The property is about as well located as you can get. It's in quote terms, it's a location in Boca, right on Yamato Road, in Broken Sound Boulevard, just east of Military Trail, close to 95. There's all the commercial amenities from LA Fitness to the other fitness group, Starbucks, retail, office. And you can see the site.
That's right by FAU, right?
Pardon?
That's right by FAU?
Right behind, just north of FAU, yeah. FAU and that whole park they just built and everything else is just on the south side of Spanish River. We come down to Spanish River, okay? You can see Spanish River down in here. And then FAU is Spanish River, yeah. This would be a little confused here, but this is the lake. Spanish River's on the south side of the lake. Yeah, that was on the land, and that's all FAU over in there. Here's how a project can change over the course of time. Stiles originally made an offer for the property in 97, 98 with Arvida. This was the old IBM land. When IBM was retrenching, they sold off all their, a lot of their assets, this being one of the properties. Then Stiles on their own tried to buy it in 2002. They bought it for the plan to build Office Depot in 2003. Then there was a change in corporate structure at Office Depot, and they decided not to build the headquarters. So Terry was left with the land. They acquired it, as you see, in 2004. Office Depot was gone. If you can picture 2004, that was really the peak of the residential boom. So they decided to rezone the property from office commercial to residential. As you can see, it was made to, because you got to do a land use plan, you got to go through the state. It's about a 12, 14-month process. Actually, I'm going through it right now on 2 properties in Pembroke. And when you got to go do a land use plan, you're not going to do it in much less than 12, 14 months. So by the time and this shows you how things can change, by the time they came out of the process in 2006, and actually I remember Denny O'Shea, who was with Stiles, called me and, all right, it's all done, maybe you guys want to buy the property. I said, Denny, if I were you, I'd go back to commercial. Because by that time, those of us that wanted to be honest with ourselves in the residential world, we kind of knew the ball game was over. I mean, frankly, we stopped buying land in 2004. I mean, the residential world was divided into 2 camps. Those of us that knew there was a small group of us knew that it was unreal. I mean, when we were having these type of price increases and these type of margins. And then there was the group that wanted to believe they were that smart and we were getting it because of, we're that smart and we can continue to do this. So we started making our preparations in late 2004, early 2005, when we were meant to, for the downturn. What really shut the residential markets off in South Florida, forgetting what everybody else says, it was Wilma in October of 2005. The reason it didn't appear publicly, because we all had these backlogs that carried us for a year, and what was really happening was disguised. Nobody really saw it unless they were privy to it. So late 2006, 2007, and nationally it trailed. Everybody talks about 2007, 2008. By that time, we were just in a continuous decline. They started in 2006. They opened their models 2007, 2008. They had 7 models built. This was their initial site plan. It was high-end townhomes and single-family homes, basically from 750 to $1.5 million, which were more of a boom time property. By 2007, we were just in a free fall. These were some renderings of the property. These were the single-family homes. And those were, they built the 7 models. That's a picture of the models. Probably in retrospect, the best thing that happened to them is they didn't sell any of them. So they were able to put a fence around the project, shut it down, and retreat and try and figure out what to do. If they had sold some units and closed on those units, it would have triggered the HOA and made the whole transition to change the project a lot more complicated because now you have residents there. So in retrospect, the fact that no sales was better than 5 sales, or 10 sales, or even 30 sales. That's basically what was built when it stopped. All the infrastructure was in, the clubhouse was built, model 7, a 6-unit townhome building and 1 single-family home, and they put a fence around it. Now here's where it gets interesting from their standpoint. When I say they, style standpoint, they had a 20. The equity was basically gone. There was a 25.7, and what I say is Terry said publicly, so I'm not violating any confidence, as you sort of numerous times. He had a $25.7 million development loan, of which he had a personal guarantee on for 50%. If you recall, in 2008, 2009, there was no financing. I mean, particularly if you were a home builder, there was none, and particularly for a defunct project. So they started to look at various alternatives on the property and ways to get out of it. And these two would have been rental projects, and this one was a commercial, I think, with a Publix and some other things. None of those really worked out. And you had a bank, remember, and the banks were imploding. They weren't exactly friendly people in those days. So the only thing the bank wanted to do, well, A, they wanted their money, but B, if they restructured the loan in any particular way, they wanted to know how they needed to see how they were going to get paid out. If they couldn't see a payout, they weren't really interested, and you couldn't get the rental and or the retail to really work to show the bank how they were going to get all their money back. And then Terry and I had lunch at Yola. And he was starting to tell me about it, and I said, listen, you're not paying anybody back $13 million. We'll figure something out. Those of us that grew up here in the home building business in the 70s, 80s, I said, listen, we thought we were having a good time. We were really in the workout business. I mean, they were very, very difficult markets. We had to keep on changing a lot of things. It was an incredible learning experience, but we'll figure a way out of this thing. And fortunately, we had another advisory board member. Did Mark speak to the?
Not to this group.
Not to this group yet?
No.
You should have Mark in. Mark Peterson, who at that time was Senior Vice President of Bank of America. Mark had a long relationship with Stiles. I also had a long relationship with Mark. And also, at that time, they had a home building division. And I knew their home building guys very well. So we figured it out pretty quick. We just had to show the bank how we were going to build, and we have the financial show to you. How are we going to show the bank how we're going to pay off them $25 million or $26 million? There you can see, and what we looked at, the $25.7 million was basically sunk funds. The whole goal of the project was to pay that off. And then we needed, to do that, we needed another $7.5 million construction revolver that we would basically borrow as we built on pre-sold units and a few specs. And it was the only residential project, definitely in the state of Florida, maybe nationwide, that B of A recapitalized, that they put new money into. And I think I know the only real two reasons were they had a borrower in Stiles that they really respected and trusted, and Terry never played the game with them. I'm not gonna pay you, sue me, do this, do that. He knew at the end of the day, they knew at the end of the day, he knew at the end of the day, if something worse came to worse, he was gonna work out terms and pay off the guarantee. And their home building division had confidence in Label and me. And as they said to each other, like in the distress world, it's our best option for getting our money back. So it's definitely the only one in the state, maybe the only one in the country. And basically this is what it looked like. I tried to get them a little bit to reduce the loan. They wouldn't reduce it a penny. So the pro forma that Terry signed off on, that I signed off on, and the bank agreed to, you can see we pay off the loan and have all of $42,960 left at the end. But he didn't have to write a $13 million check or $12.7 million check. And the bank got paid off, and everybody was happy. To make a long story short, we ended up generating free cash somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. So we'll talk about it a little later, but we got fortunate. You know, sometimes it's better to be smart than lucky than smart. And we hit a good little cycle in the market, and we were able to accelerate the production, and it worked out extremely well. So the first thing we had to do is we had to if you recall, all the roads, water, sewer, paving, drainage was all in place. It would have cost us about $3-4 million to rip everything out and start with a clean slate. So you're not going to start in a $26 million hole and add another $4 million. That makes no sense. So we had to redesign the project within basically the existing infrastructure. We saved about 95% of the infrastructure. These were just some of the early sketches that we had. This was their initial. This was our initial site plan that we did with my architect, who I've been using for now 17 years or so. And then we kept basically the integrity. Just wiggled a few roads, added a little bit, took out one road. These were the very, very preliminary elevations. This was our final site plan, so it was very similar to the conceptual site plan. The units in white were the 7 existing units. The units in the teal color were you'll see pictures, what we call the conventional front-loaded townhomes, and the, I guess, burnt orange color, that's our rear-loaded townhomes. So we had 2 different townhome sizes. The rear-loaded ones, the garages are in the back. In this world, we were 1,280 to 1,780 square feet, and we were basically from 239 to 280, 278 to 280. If you fast forward to today, those prices are up about 80 to 100,000. You know, because we were doing this in 2009, 2010, really at the depth of the market. And to show you the guts of Stiles, he had a lot of people, including some people that work for him, saying, well, what are you doing? You can buy resale single-family homes. Remember all that distress stuff, some of the stuff you probably bought, that you can get out of the market. Why are people going to buy condos? But it's a lifestyle, and it's new, and it's an alternate, and it's a different buyer than people looking to buy the distressed or single-family homes. Those were our more expensive homes. Most of these were on the lake or the preserve. A few of them were back-to-back. These are conventional with the front-loaded garages, and these were bigger. So we went from 1,900 to 2,100 feet. Yeah, we started 335 to I think it was like 350 base, and those are up basically on the lake 100,000 now. maybe some summer a little bit more. That's just, that's what you see from Spanish River, is the guy from Boulder. When you're driving along Spanish River. And then partway through the project, we kept on hearing people want more space, people want more space. So we took our largest two-story unit, which was 1,750 square feet, and we put on what we call a third story, which is an 800 square foot bonus room, where you can have it as a one bedroom. You can have a one, and I'll show you the floor. You can have a one bedroom with a big guest space. It's basically a one bedroom apartment up there. I mean, a lot of us lived in a much smaller apartment than 800 square feet. Then what we also did is we had an optional elevator. So it appealed to people that have home offices. You know, you hear about elderly parents coming back to live with their children. Well, with the elevator, it opened it up to that market, because they can have the elevator, they can have their own separate living space. We had an optional kitchenette with a microwave and everything else that we could live. Or even, you know, the teenager or the college kid that comes back, he can have his own apartment up there. So there's tremendous flexibility. We built 2 buildings because it came towards the end of the project. That once people saw the model, it went over extremely well. As a matter of fact, we now have 3 more versions of it at my newer projects. And those units are up about 150,000. We sold them like $349. They're now $499 to low 5s. That was a picture of the first model building. The first building was finished, also the model building. We purposely in those days got away. If you remember, everything in South Florida, suburban South Florida, and during the boom was like the what I call, you know, the sienna, earthy Italian colors. Like, you know, we were heavy colors. So any project, so we said, listen, we got to make this thing what I call, you know, our sherbet colors. We got to make it light. We got to make it happy. We don't want, we repainted the old units, the 7 old units. We don't want to have anybody look at it and think it's a remnant of what happened during the bust, because then it has all the aura of that and they think it's distressed. We want it to feel lively, upbeat, fresh, new. And so, you know, a lot of people say they remind them of the Key West colors, but whatever, it worked out very, very well. From an approval standpoint, it took us about 9 months. We had to then go through all the city process of the master plan, the site plan. And then, yeah, here you can see the basic timeline, February 2009. We opened for sale May 15th of 2010. Basically, we closed the loan after, started the models in September. We opened the models in January of 2011. Had our last closing January of 2013. We were sold out in the summer of 2012. And what happened during the process, this was just a snapshot whenever we gave probably the first talk. And this is an aerial while the project was under construction. Just what did I do? Oh, I don't have them. Then I don't know if you can see them. You can see the floor plans. This was our smallest one. One of the things I do with the townhomes is I do everything on the same module. So in this particular case, the rear loaded were 25 by 50 and the front loaded were 25 by 65. But I'm really not that smart that I know over a 2 or 3 year period exactly what the unit mix is going to be. So by designing to that same module, and we get it pre-approved with the city like that, we can, as we release each building, we can adjust the model mix to what is selling. If it goes together, there's a puzzle where they're all interlocking, you can't do that. You know, and that means you gotta start discounting your this unit and doing that with that unit, and you get some dogs, yeah.
Did you have to pre-sell before you started going vertical?
Yes and no.
Like
According
a
to the
percentage?
According to the bank loan, particularly in those days, was extremely restrictive, so they let us start the model building,
Oh, okay.
which basically Terry funded personally. And then, I'm going through it now, like, we had like, I think, 10 or 12 pre-sales before the models were done. I just went through the same thing up in West Palm, and so like in my new project, we're not gonna even open for sale till we have drywalling. A lot of the townhome jobs, people wanna see it, just picture yourself, it's not like, they wanna kick it, they wanna feel it, they wanna see how it all comes together. And then what I did, I said to Terry, listen, you're putting your money in. The labeling company, we came in with a bridge loan that we were then able to start a few more buildings. So we built, between Terry and myself, we had about, I think, up to 5 buildings going. And then when we would hit the pre-sale requirement with the bank, they would take out our loans, they would take out his equity and my loans, and we'd be able to replace it with the bank loan. So we built spec, but not within the bank line, within our own
It's
funds.
risky, isn't it?
More risky, if you know what you're doing, it's more risky not to do it. Because if you picture yourself like you're coming to, particularly in these days, remember, this is when nothing is, this is 2010. Everybody thinks we're crazy.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Build spec
so if you
in
come
that
to,
time
if you
period.
come to a field and you see one little building going on, you know, before you see the building, are they really gonna build it, are they gonna do this, are they gonna do that? Then if they only see one little model building going up, they say, what the hell's happening here? They're gonna wait till you see. If you go to a job, and this is the way, you know, I come from Minto, we're obviously a large company, but where the job has activity and there's momentum and there's a lot of building and it feels good. And so you as a consumer have a lot more confidence. You know, you drive in and you see you remember, 3, 4, 5 buildings under construction and you haven't really opened the models yet. There's a whole set of different feeling than going and seeing a field with one building and saying, oh, what the hell's happening here? Well, that's really in good times or bad times. So it's risky. Yeah, you could say it's risky if you don't believe in the job and you don't believe, you're questionable with the market. I never perceived it was risky. I mean, I felt very, very confident about the job, very confident about our prices, very confident about the the floor plans. But collectively, we also had a lot of experience. You know, I wouldn't advise doing it on your first job. Then it could be a little risky. You know, so hopefully by this stage of my life, I figured out how to calculate the risk and sort of minimize it. But yeah, there's always some level of risk.
Yeah.
But we both were very, very comfortable with it. Yeah, this was the second. This turned out to be, in this series, the most popular plan. You know, 1,700 square feet, come in, you got a nice big great room, living space. You had good bedrooms, everything was very, very comfortable. And it was also a more profitable unit. So once people saw the models, in most of our buildings, we would have, let's say they were 4, 5, 6 unit buildings. We would have 4 of these, 5 of these units, and put in one of the other units, one of the 2 smaller units. So that's part of what contributed to that increase from 43,000 to 2 million of the additional cash, because you know the margins, the net margin on the larger unit is substantially more usually than the smallest unit, because your fixed costs really don't change that much. You still got bedrooms and bathrooms and concrete, and you know there's probably 10%. You know, if it was $50 to build that a foot, I'm just making up numbers real quick. The smaller unit was probably closer to 58, 60. You know, so you don't really get it. And then these were our front-loaded units, and the same thing happened. This is the 1,900-foot unit. Fortunately, the 2,100-foot unit was the more popular, so out of a 6-unit building, we would put 4 or 5 of these. one or two of the others. And again, the net margin for the job is much more. If we had a interlocking puzzle configuration, we wouldn't have been able to change the mix, which means you gotta discount the ones, the units that aren't selling so well, and it holds up your production and holds up everything. Just a second floor. This is that Sky unit that I was telling you about that we put on the 3rd floor, and we can get on the internet on this thing, right? I can go to the internet when we're done here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll show you how we changed this on the next job, and then we're changing it again on the other job. If you see, you know, the first 2 floors are the same. The 3rd floor, you see you got this 800 square foot space, plus this huge terrace. So people aren't used to seeing that in a townhome configuration. And, you know, as I said, there's a multitude of uses, from the parent to the kid, to the teenager, to the college student, to a home office, to a huge entertainment space. So we can do it that way, or we do it with a bedroom, so it's really like an apartment. This is the optional elevator. This would be the kitchenette. Plus you got your own patio, you know, so it can be pretty much a self-contained area. They use, like, a lot of people like to use the fancy term multi-generational. Yeah, it could be multi-generational. Then what we did in our next project in West Palm Beach, we had certain people that wanted more bedrooms, so we actually created another bedroom right in through here. And it still left a nice quality play area here. A lot of divorcees would get it, so they put their kids up there, give them their study area or playroom or game room, TV right in the center, and they got like their own self-enclosed private space. Oh, what was going on here? Is that it? Oh, that's the end of the slides. So anyways, one of the things, one of the other things that significantly enhanced the bottom line, we had scheduled it for a production pace of a building a month, or, you know, 5-6 units a month. If you recall, at the end of 2011, 2012, the market hit a bit of an uptick. So we were able to accelerate the sales, which then enabled us to build up the backlog and double the production. So we were able to increase our production from a building a month to 2 building a month. And one of the things most people don't realize about the high volume builders, like what we did at Minto, or what people like JL do, they don't understand over the year, oh, they're losing money, they can't build it. When we set up and build at a higher level, we're reducing our overhead significantly. So we can build faster, sell it at a better price, and at the end of the day have a larger return. So by increasing by cutting 6 months off the job, that's 6 months of advertising, 6 months of overhead, 6 months of everything. That's what drew that about $2 million. It was mostly the savings in overhead. In a different time, in a different environment, we may have said, well, let's move the prices and not do it. But if you recall, our main goal here was to pay off the loan, and have as much surplus cash as possible. So the faster we could pay off the loan, and then at the same time develop surplus cash, everybody was happy, including the bank. So we paid the bank off about 6 months earlier. We generated additional cash, and that really, it served as the basis. So, you know, now we're down there. So I'm starting to look for my next job. So in our world, the home building is sort of becoming dominated by the larger players, and particularly the public. So in South Florida, it's a little bit skewed. We have a real shortage of developed land. You know, in Broward County, you know, we were all Southwest Broward, we basically finished that up around 2000. Montero was the one big community after that. And now we just have small little infill pieces for those of us that are used to doing large-scale communities. You know, Dade, there's what, a little bit in Hialeah. Devl is its own world. Homestead is still figuring out what Homestead is going to be. And in Palm Beach, there's like 3 main areas, most of which are already controlled by a few major players. So when something comes on the market of reasonable size, as soon as it gets in the market, you have a public company with a public attitudes, they'll typically overpay or pay more than the privates, or even some of the other public, and they tend to take, I don't think it's on purpose, but they tend to, who's more aggressive, almost rotate who the higher bidder is for that period of time. So like in a lot of the deals, they'll pay 25 to 35% more today than where the privates will typically bid. So I'm just a simple small home builder now. I can't compete with those guys because hey, you're dealing with real cash. You know, they're dealing with public money. So what we have to focus on from our standpoint are a more opportunistic type of deals that are, you know, that we got to get before they make it to the general market. So we took that. Here, Jessica, get to the engine. Go ahead. Sorry, while Jessica's doing that, you can ask questions there.
So, I guess what was your motivation to get involved with this project when you saw a return of $42,000 and at the depth of the market? I mean, you know,
well, it was, for
everybody's running, and like, what was your motivation to? I know you're trying to help Terry out.
Well, it was pretty simple. In 2009, I was looking to get back into home building. From Label and Company standpoint, we were able to, with Terry, negotiate fees. So we were being compensated for the work. And then we were able to negotiate effectively success fees. If we hit if we did everything we said we were doing, if we did better, you know, we shared in that success. If we did, we did, and we paid the piper. So what, frankly, what enabled me to do was A, get back to building probably 2 to 3 years, at least 2 years earlier than I would have. And I was able to also bring together my core team. You know, what happens at it doesn't matter whether it's Minto or IBM or Apple, you know, Jobs dies and they get rid of certain guys. When the top guys goes, the new people always want to bring in their people. That's what we're comfortable with. And that's regardless of industry. It's just the way of the corporate world. You see it all the time.
What are you looking for?
Villa's on Antique Road. So, right around the same time, my senior operations guy, who actually came from Minto, was a Canadian company. He actually came from Ottawa with Minto, I think in 77 or 78. He left Minto. We built 20,000 units in South Florida. So I was able to bring him on and get him active. And my sales manager, who started with us roughly in 1980, 81. She left right after I left. I was able to get her engaged. So, you know, from you know, and I don't want to have 350 people anymore. I just want to have a core team of doing very high quality jobs, we're always proud of what we do, but it's just doing great jobs, enjoying ourselves, not having the HR and the normal nonsense that goes on with it. And work hard. So I was able to get my senior operations guy, senior VP. I was able to bring on my senior sales manager. And fortunately, just as we were starting to look for a superintendent, one of our top superintendents, actually the guy, when they were doing, J.D. Powers he used to survey Florida when there was enough home builders. He always got the highest scores of Minto and the highest scores in Palm Beach. He was available. So it was a vehicle to bring back the core team.
Yeah.
And with that team, you know, we can do from 180 units, the next one was 46, so we can do 1,000 units, you know, Gary, and we've done everything from, mostly in the home building world, people tend to specialize in low-rise, single-family townhomes, or rental, or high-rise. We were unique that we did everything, we did all for sale. Doesn't really matter if it was a single-family home, townhome, or high-rise. We built the tower right behind us, the 31-story tower with a water garden. We built 2,000 units of rental. You know, so as long as you live in it, we're pretty good at it, you know. We did a few commercial jobs in the past, we weren't so good. You know, that's not our forte, and that's not what we do. So it enabled me to really get rolling. And then time 11, 12 came around, I was looking for another job, I got a team, I got this, I got that, it worked out. Again, it's better to be lucky than smart, you know, it just worked out well, we were able to roll in. This was another job, this was our next job that we did, and you can see the difference. Now the market had changed. This is in West Palm Beach, you guys, probably none of you go there. Urban, it's go ahead.
Is this the one by next to City Place, in West Palm?
Just south of City Place, yeah. It's right on Dixie Highway. Again, and I found it through a relationship, somebody I knew for many, many years. Actually, he was having lunch with Terry. Terry's now knows residentially, I talked to Harry. And I was surprised, in Fort Lauderdale terms, when I went up there, I never really paid any attention to this area. It's in what they call, next to the historic districts, which reminds you, if you go, you know, Victoria Park, which is right over here, just east of us, in Fort Lauderdale term, reminds me a lot of Victoria Park, little bit of Rio Vista. It's just it's historic homes there, they don't even let you knock them down. You're 4 blocks from the water, from the intracoastal. So what we tried to do there, and it was big enough, it was 4 acres, that we were able to design a community as opposed to just a building or two. So we're able to do 46 units and 11 retail units. The reason we're able to do these retail units, it's in what they call an antique row, which once I saw it and understood it, it's this unique district. It's only about 6 or 8 blocks, but they attract antique people, designers and shops from all over the world, particularly, you know, it's very seasonal up there. So it's like, they get a lot of people from the Palm Beaches and the people flying in, and they're paying high rent. So like we were, at our sales center, we were paying like $2,500 a month for the first year before we moved into our own space, for 900 square feet. You know, it's like $35 a foot. So, and the city wanted us to have retail on Dixie Highway, which made sense. So this is Dixie Highway. Oh, you can see that.
Yeah, is there?
Oh, yeah. So that's Dixie. So what we did, these spaces where you see the A, those are 630 feet. These little antique shops, they don't need a lot of space. So except for the odd end unit, they can be combined. You can do them as 630 or 1260. You can buy 2 and take out the demising one. And we figured out a way to do it as fee simple with ear rights, as opposed to making it condo, which legally makes it much simpler. Cost-wise for the owners makes it less expensive, and it makes it far more marketable, because financing a condo, particularly those days, versus fee simple is much different, and people like to own the land. And the way and it took us a while to get the city to understand, but you see, the retail unit sits on the ground, so it's touching the ground. And what we call the carriage home, this is its garage, and it wraps around and then sits above the retail unit. It also is on the ground, so it can be fee simple. And then we just defined the upper limit for the retail, we defined it mathematically as a space within the, let's say, within the truss space. Be separating between the units, so it'd be, let's say, we have to have a ceiling, so let's be 10'6" above the slab, and that would be the upper limit of that unit, and we would have a pin on the exterior where they surveyed to. So they physically saw the upper limit of that unit. It was all fee simple. If you go, whether you're in Broward County or Palm Beach County, most of these retail residential things don't do too well when they're intermingled like that. If you go like in here from, let's say, north of Delray up through West Palm, there's a load of empty ones. The retail usually doesn't do that well. You got restrictions. Most people didn't quite understand what we were trying to do. We were able to sell them for $150,000. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like $230 a foot. And all the appraisers up there, they say, oh, yeah, you'll never get that. Anyways, but if you're spending $2,500, $3,000 a month in rent, and you're not getting anything, and these are old buildings, they can own their own space. The maintenance is low because it's not condo. It's all done for them. And the big surprise of the whole job was the retail, which we were all concerned about, it basically sold out in 2 weeks. And now, there's two units, this was up there yesterday, there's 2 units on the market. One is at $299 and one is at $370. I don't know what they're gonna sell for, but what it enabled us to do, and you asked me the question about the spec units also. So when we started, so these were our conventional townhomes. We built this building as our model building, and we sold the extra units. And we built all this as our recreation. So when you come in, you have all that credibility. You know, you can see, well, when are you building the pool? This is all part of the show. We also built this building, which had our carriage home model and all the retail. And then because we had all this retail sold, we built this building, this building, this building. So from Dixie Highway, it gave us a lot of credibility. The whole job was under construction. What it also did was for the townhomes, these units were, let's say, 315, 320. The townhomes were 389 to over 5. It sealed it off from Dixie. Once those buildings went up, we never heard, what's Dixie Highway, what's this, what's that. It never came up. It was a non-issue. And then we CO'd this building in December. Well, we CO'd this one in December of 2013. Because the retail was all sold, and we opened the models. I always open the models. We're like the week before Super Bowl, the week before or the week after. I usually like to move. So these retailers were rushing to get in. We closed them like this first, second week of December for the Christmas season. So when we opened up the models, the project was alive, better than we would have even have thought, because all these retailers were open. So it brings a lot of positive energy to the street and to the project. And then this was, and then we started production here, February, March, April, May, and closed it out at the end of the building a month. So, yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. 2 questions. How big was the site for its acreage?
4.1 acres.
Okay, and what was the construction cost?
Around $60 a foot.
Okay.
Just net hard cost. Doesn't include permits, doesn't include supervision, doesn't include. Construction costs for low rise is significantly different than high rise. You got a whole different trade base.
Would you have thought about that whole retail play on Dixie Highway if it wasn't an issue with the city?
Possibly, because it shielded those units as straight townhomes would have been difficult to sell. Because it's noisy and everything else. So maybe yes, maybe no. The city, in our case, did us a favor, and then by keeping them small and affordable, I don't think you can do that same thing 6 blocks to the north, because you're out of that antique road district. I don't know how that happened, but you can see it. And I touched on it. And I don't think you can do, I know you can't do it 6 blocks to the south, on the south side of Southern Boulevard, because the area just can't, you're not gonna get that concentration of high-quality antique stores. So it was really this specific location that enabled it to work. And now when you go back there a year later, now that, which we knew would happen, all of a sudden, all these other little older stores are spending a lot of money fixing up, because now they look very old, because you got this new project open. And the antique people come together, and they got all these banners on the street poles, and they always merchandise it, but they're merchandising it even stronger. They're cleaning up the neighborhood. And the bodega across the street that my Gretchen used to, my sales manager used to say, Harry, buy it and knock it down, buy it and knock it down. You know, they've even repainted the place. After we're gone, after we're done.
Do you foresee olive oil floor impacting this area?
I'm very, very positive on all of
It's
this.
gonna have a stop in that area, right?
It's gonna have a stop, yeah, up by a city place. Yeah. I think Olive Board, Florida is long overdue. I give these guys tremendous credit privately, getting it done. And what I think is, the first step is good. I think that if they get a major stop in St. Lucie, because, you know, we all, I'll tell you that story, but in St. Lucie, that's where like the affordable housing for Palm Beach and North Broward is now, but it's a long drive. If you get a stop there right by 95 and Tradition, or 95 and Becker, and you can come right into Palm Beach and into Palm Beach, Boca, and Fort Lauderdale, it's going to open up the whole, make it more of a big metropolitan area and serve the market. Yes.
What type of financing was offered for the units? Was it any FHA or straight conventional? And do you see a lot of cash buyers for this project?
That's a good question. I'll talk about both projects. And at Centro, we it was a different time, but we were mid-2s to mid-4s. There was a bit of FHA. The FHA limits then got adjusted, and not many of our units fit into the FHA guidelines. So it was conventional financing. Interestingly, at Centra, about 50% were cash buyers. Here, there were about 35–40% cash buyers. The qualifications it's becoming friendlier, but it can still be very difficult. It still takes a lot of work. You know, it became, we all know it was way too easy. Like anything, it overcorrected. It became too restrictive, and the appraisers were out of control. And now it's coming back where it's progressively getting better. But it's all conventional financing.
What's the tenant mix? I mean, is it mainly owner occupancy?
Yeah, well, here, I'll tell you, it's interesting, with these type of infill townhomes, you'd find the same thing in Victoria Park here, in Centra, forget demographics, and villas, you know, you got the younger professionals, both single and married. You know, you guys are waiting a little bit longer to get married, a lot of you. Some newlyweds, but you'll find when the kids get to 3 or 4, or close to school age, they want to go to a more traditional, single family and suburban type of lifestyle. And then a lot of divorcees and empty nesters and pre-retiree type of stuff. But The professional couple, older 40s to 60s is a big component in a lot of different ways, you know, like, there were a lot of people, a lot of divorcees whose kids live within a few miles here. So they can be close and they can have them on the weekends or back and forth, or they shuttle them around, whatever they do. And then a lot of empty nesters and pre-retirees that don't want the aggravation of the big house. They can have more of a, you know, conventional, maintenance-free lifestyle. And what we found with the elevators, because now we make the elevators optional in all the units, we get a few more retirees because you can't get a single-story plan here. I mean, it's too small. You'll end up with nothing. So what we were able to do is, with the optional elevator, it takes that out of the equation for a lot of people, and they don't mind it. And what we do with the elevators, like the elevator guy said, what the hell are you doing? You're selling so many elevators. Out of the 25 three-story units, I think we sold 17 elevators. Because the elevator, let's say, is 17 and change. By the time I'm done with electric and some structural, but it's, let's say, 20,000 all in. We sell it for 26.5. I'm not in the elevator business. I'm here to sell the homes. So we sell it at a lower markup, but what it does is helps us to sell homes faster. You know, so everyone else wants to get 30, 35,000. Well, it comes to a point where it sounds like it's not such a good value to the people, to the customer. So I want to use it as a marketing tool. We'll make a few bucks, but more importantly, we'll sell the units.
Can you give your perspective on how you go about maybe even setting homeowners association fees, or kind of just maybe your own perspective about homeowners association fees, and maybe the trade-offs of how much what impact it may even have on the pricing of units and that sort of thing?
Sure. Homeowners association fees, it's not a profit tool. They sort of are what they are. You know, it's insurance, it's maintenance, it's lawn maintenance, it's pool maintenance, it's clubs maintenance, whatever you have. So depending upon the size of your community, we always found historically is do them honestly. I mean, if you understate them to try and think you're going to sell faster, I mean, A, people are smart enough they can sometimes sense it, or B, they're just going to be mad at you. But if you over amenitize, like here we kept it, here, this would be a good example. We kept the amenities to just a pool and a spa, and obviously cabana bathrooms and green space, because there were 46 units. We didn't think it could carry a heavy clubs and all that, because then you'd start adding significantly to the maintenance fees. When we go to Pembroke, we're finished here, we're going to Pembroke next. A, it's a younger market, it's a more active market. But B, the project, like the first one is 89, and then I think I want a 61. We think it can support a bit more and not increase the cost, because you know a lot of your fixed costs, they go down with your higher community, more units. So we'll add like the fitness center, the same size fitness center as we had at the Central. We're going to put that in the pool area also, but it won't really add to our costs. What we found is that when we were dealing with when we were doing the large scale master plan communities, because there were 1,000, 1,500 units, we could give a lot of amenities and not have a major effect. When that community became 400 or 500 units, if you didn't scale back the amenities, then it can blow it up. With the condos, the maintenance fees are much, much higher legislatively, and you got to carry more insurances, and when you start putting a lot of amenities into small buildings, it goes up pretty fast. So you need an affluent crowd, otherwise it can price out, because it's a real number. And like you have to scale the amenities relative to the demographics of the project. If you have too many amenities, you can't hurt. If you have too high a maintenance fee because you overscale the amenities, you'll hurt the saleability of the project. One of the other things we did, Jess, how do I go back? To the, like, the whole
Go
page.
to this.
This one here, close this?
No, just go back here.
Oh,
Is that what you're looking
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so, one of the things we did, this is a pretty cool plan. While we were building the models, we became a little concerned, or as we were getting ready to build the models, this unit in West Palm was now $489.9 for that 3-story that I showed you earlier. And by the time you're done with options and premiums, you're in your low mid-5s. That for some people, the living dining area may have been too small. But we couldn't change the structure of the building because effectively we were building it and I couldn't hold it up. And if I waited to the next building, I wouldn't have the model for 6 months, or to the end of the job, because here we were in, let's say, September of 2013. I needed that model in January 2014. We're starting production on the next building in February. That means I'm not going to have the model till July, August, September. I missed the season. So within that same footprint of what I call the Sky unit, that 3-story unit that we had at the Centra, and we brought up here, we redesigned it to put a master bedroom down, but more impressively and more importantly, the second floor we moved, because you lose 450 square feet downstairs because of the garage, we moved the whole living, dining, entertainment area to the second floor. So when you come up here, you're looking at one open 25 by 50 foot space, which became the knockout space. And it was equivalent to basically a great room you would have in a 3,500 square foot home. So this model, fortunately, actually became, it outsold the other one 2 to 1. And we didn't even have the model when we opened it for pre-sale 6 months earlier. So it's, with residential home building is a very hands-on, retail-oriented business that you gotta always keep changing things and adjusting them, and most importantly, listening honestly to what the customers are saying. I mean, at the end of the day, we're really very, very simple retailers. We're just selling houses. But we gotta really listen, and you know, the biggest trap we all fall into is we think, oh, we're right, and you know, but listen to what the customer is saying and design for that. And you gotta keep on adjusting. The same way every year there's fashion people come out with new designs for dresses, or new colorations, or new blouses, or even with jeans. Oh, they do something with the jeans that make people buy new jeans every year. And shoes, you know. We gotta do, you don't sometimes need major radical surgery, but fine tuning. And by doing this, I mean, I think we avoided a huge problem, because and what happened was we attracted the girl was asking about the buyer profile and everything else. We ended up attracting a very affluent profile to this. So a lot of the people that bought this unit ended up spending between $60,000 and $80,000 on options, which to us is very profitable. And then afterwards, a bunch of them put in like another $70,000 to $100,000, so they had $650,000, $700,000. And we got a lot of people from Palm Beach and a lot of people down buying and so forth, so it worked out well. And now when we're taking this unit to Pembroke, I didn't bring the plan with me, but because we're not constrained with the structure anymore, because we have a clean slate, this stays the same. This, we basically redesigned the first floor, so we have a smaller bathroom here, right over in here. We have a smaller, this is going to be a 4th bedroom or an office, or it can be open, and then the rest of the downstairs is all open. So when you walk in, you're basically gonna have another flex space or usable space. It could be a big bar area, it could be an entertainment area, you can have a billiard table there. Or you can have a bedroom. So it's gonna be a far more powerful space. This will stay the same. And then on the third floor, because we're gonna have, we think, a more family-oriented market, instead of just 2 bedrooms that were a little tight, we'll go back to a 3-bedroom layout, similar like we had on, hold on. Pardon?
Oh, you trying to go back to the website?
Yeah.
That's the left tab. Yeah.
Oh, there it is, yeah. Here. There you go. Yeah, the third floor, it will now have, with all the bedrooms, will look more like this. No, not like that, like the other one. Oh, shit. This one? Like this one with 3 bedrooms. So basically it can be you got 3 good bedrooms on the third floor. I still hit the wrong one. Or you could have 4 bedrooms downstairs. You know, so then we're bringing in a new model. You keep on changing it, adjusting it. I think I can show you here. Yeah, that shows you how the retail space of the carriage home above, the one I talked about earlier on Dixie Highway. So this is the retail space in the white. There's its private entry. And then the carriage home comes in and wraps around it up above. So it turned out to be, because the unit was wide, that unit was 30 feet wide, it felt very, very light, very, very open. And we give these people the option of opening up, if they buy both, they could open it up, and, directly into their retail space.
What percentage?
Which 2 people did.
What percentage roughly did buy both, the carriage house as well as the?
1, 2, 3, I think. 3 or 4. A few more wish they did afterwards,
Yeah.
and 2 of them opened it up. One opened it up with us, and one had it open, then they decided to close it before they took occupancy, and then they saw what the other guy did, and then they opened it up on their own. But it's pretty, and then what they do, from a retail standpoint, they can use that back flex room as additional storage. I mean, there's a lot of cheating, and they can get some pretty cheap space and so forth, so it works out well. They use part of the garage for storage. In this particular instance, it happened to work out pretty well.
Most of the people that purchase the retail offices do they operate as antique stores, or is it a mix of?
No, it's
retailers?
antique stores,
Okay.
furniture.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Special.
African jewelry
Mm-hmm.
who's done incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She's got really, really nice stuff. She used to be in another part of West Palm. She did more business in 3-4 months with us than she did in the prior year. We had a guy who has a place also in the Hamptons, Long Island. He paid for his space in 3 months last year. So, no, it's mostly antiques, furniture, one gift shop that's, she doesn't do a good job of and they're loaded with stuff. Yeah.
So did you say the retail portion had air rights?
Yeah, what happened was, we were able to sell it fee simple. This was the retail portion, and it's legally described that it would go vertically to, I'll make up the number, 10.6 feet in the year, which brought it into the, into Celestial, into the truss space of the unit between this and this. And then we would put a nail in the stucco on the street, in the front of the building, at that point. So the surveyor can physically describe the lower and upper elevation of the unit. And if you can do it, it's an excellent way to avoid condo, which is a big savings on the whole variety. It's more marketable and also more, a big cost savings.
I got a question.
Sure.
In terms of your construction, I guess,
Yeah.
in the recent years, have you seen a lack in the labor?
Everybody has a lack of labor.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Do you see that turning around anytime soon? Any of them coming back, or they're gonna have to hire a whole new, class of,
Well, here's the issue, like I tell my guys,
then they left and then,
it's much better to have this problem than no sales, and no building, so.
yeah.
Seriously, a big part of the problem is our immigration laws. You know, a lot of our guys left the country, and they're having a difficult time getting back in. Some of them left the industry, and frankly, the Americans don't want to do the work. So I don't know, you know.
Has that slowed down your schedules at all? Because, I mean.
Fortunately, not much.
Okay, good.
And if I look back over 25, 30 years, there's always, there's always issues, I'd rather be talking about those issues than
No one buying it.
no one buying and who's surviving and who's going out of business. But, there's always reasons. During the boom, there were problems, there was this problem or that problem. So that's one of the problems you have to learn how to manage through. Now, fortunately, most of our trades, even though we're small now, but most of our guys have been with us 25, 30 years, between 20 and 30 years. We like to believe we run a very organized job. So it's an easy job for them they can come in, they don't waste time, if they're efficient, they can make money. We get them in, we get them out, we have a standardized, it's a very industrial production type of schedule that we run. So they know when they gotta be there, they know when they gotta be out of there. It doesn't quite always work like that, but we like to think it does. And so they have some efficiencies and a little bit of loyalty maybe. You had a question?
Do you have like any key particular sites that you want to approach next?
Well, the next one, I'll show you that one. We were going to Pembroke next. And then there's, a few others, but,
I have a question.
It's not up until you guys. Pardon?
I work on Atlantic Avenue in Delray.
Yeah, it's a great
There's
area.
a lot of building going on there. A concept like that, I think, would do pretty well.
All right, I agree with you.
I mean, they have an iPad coming with a mall coming all within 2017.
This would, even the retail would work great on Atlantic. Yeah, the problem is finding the right piece at a price that's still affordable on Atlantic. They're pricing it for mid-rise and everything else.
Is there a number you look for, like per door when you're buying the land, or I know that the price?
It's a little bit location. There's a range in mind. But it also depends, like for example, in this location, because it's urban, in West Palm Beach terms, you're going to pay a little bit more than you would have, let's say, in the suburbs, or like when we go to Pembroke. Because theoretically, you're going to get more because it's urban. A little bit further east, you should get a little more, you should be able to sustain a little more. I don't really go, a lot of people use these 25% ratios. I really have never done that. I look at what makes financial sense and we put it all together. Then what do you include in the 25%? Are you including infrastructure, including amenity, so it gets a little murky and people monkey around. I just do it a pretty simple way. Jessica knows on one page, and how does it all turn out? But somewhere in that range, somewhere in 20, 25, it usually ends up. And when markets get heated, it can go higher, 30%.
What is your outlook on single-family homes as far as the industry itself and its growth or decline?
Pretty positive. We have it's been the slowest recovery we've had post-World War II, which I expected. We had such a huge upturn in such a huge downturn, frankly, the industry, like you were asking a question about the trades and the consultants, I mean, everybody is afraid to add a lot of people because they still have the scars of what happened the last time. So we've seen the industry go up slowly. Historically, single family leads the country out of the recession. It did happen this time. It's been moving up slowly. We're still at, call it 50–60% of normal production levels nationwide. South Florida is skewed because of land availability. You know, Broward, we used to do 6,000–8,000 units. You can't do 6,000–8,000 units in Broward County because there's only land for 1,000–1,500 units. The starter market, which is usually the first market, for reasons you guys probably know better than I do, has been hurt nationwide because of the employment issue, because of school loans, because of wage or lack of wage increases, and because of delayed marriages. You've had the influx of rental construction, which has been absorbing some of that demand. But going back to someone else's question earlier, what we're starting to see, and some of us believe, when you all get to your, some of you maybe their 30s, and you start having families, you're going to leave the Las Olases for the most part and go to the Westons and have the kids, and then, you know, maybe come back when you're empty nester type of thing. But we're starting to see a bit of that nationally. I think the single-family world, like the number of players has diminished dramatically. Okay? The number of private guys like me building homes there are a handful. We get invited to these investor conferences to speak. You know, they hear from the publics and they want to hear from the private guys. And one of them says to a friend, well, who else can you bring to this dinner? He says, there's not many of us left, which is true. I mean, when you look at the number of forgetting GL and Minto, which are large institutional type of companies, when you look at small independent home builders, there used to be a lot of them, not a lot of left. There's a bunch of them in the what I call the high multi-million-dollar price range custom homes, but that's a different world. But I think the industry is going to play catch up. I think the industry is going to, I think it's, in certain ways we may not like it, but it's good, it's building muscle. I think as the economy continues to improve, the starter market will start to build muscle and start to come down. Particularly, you know, the resales are moving up in price, so we'll make the starter homes more attractive. And there's still the lure of, you know, a new home, new family, new lifestyle, new life, you know, and all the things that it brings with us. But I think the industry is far from dead. I think it's going to be nationally and locally a less creative industry, where then for smaller guys or privates, it's easier to shine. I mean, when I say less creative, I don't like to always attack the publics, but the publics are the least creative because they're larger and they have to move, and they're really financial companies with manufacturing arms. And they don't take the time, it's not in their discipline historically, not 100%, for the most part, that the privates will do in the design, marketing, and amenities. And you can see it in South Florida. If you look at, let's say, GL's communities and the old Minto communities, I can't talk about the new zones, but the communities when we were there for 25 years. You know, there was a much higher level of design. Even that's why GL, you know, I kid him. Why just sell me some land? We'll have competition, have a little fun again. Oh, no, but they don't like one. They have no competition today. Nobody is really performing at their level. From the overall master planning, the site planning, the community planning, the amenity planning, and the product level of development, and they continually to fine tune it. You know, like same thing we do. I'm smart than we used to do. There was, even in their newer communities, they're still always bringing out new models and changing models. And back to your point, let's say at their Bridges community, which is, you know, 600 to 2 million, they have one level of amenities. and the associated cost. In Canyon, which is, let's say, in the threes, not Canyon, but Tuscany, which is a new one just opening today, models, they have a much different scaled back level of amenities. And so you gotta like scale the amenities and the maintenance to the price range of the communities. So, you know, I'm prejudiced because I'm a home builder and I love it, I like it. Home building is not dead, home building is gonna continue, home building is rebuilding. From an entrepreneurial aspect, from people your age, there's gonna be extraordinary opportunity because there's a few guys like my generation, you know, that are still doing it. There's not a lot of younger people. I mean, there's a lot of younger people working for public companies. There's not a lot of private people that got some training, whether at a Minto or GL or a public, and then went on their own. And I think you'll see that coming again. I mean, you always have, and as, now that there's financing is becoming more available, you know. When I built this project, I did it with TD Bank. I had a relationship with TD Bank because Minto, they banked Minto since 1955, and I knew all the senior guys in Canada, so they supported me. And up till recently, it was the only home building deal they did in Florida, and one of the few they did in the United States, other than Minto Atlanta. Now that I'm financing my new project, it's become far more competitive on much better terms. Like, they want to actually lend you the money this time. This time, we'll give you the loan, but you got to figure out how to get the money. So things are slowly reverting back to normal. I don't think it's a bad thing that it's slow. I think it's, you know, from a consultant base, the consultants are stretched, just like the trades are stretched. You're probably seeing it on the commercial. You know, everyone's afraid to overstaff and have what happened. And I think at the end of the day, it will reach 1 million starts again. Maybe not as fast as some of us like it, but it will get back to 1 million. And there will be an adjustment again. Hopefully there's not an adjustment before we get back to 1 million, but there will be more down cycles, and the guys that are financially conservative, with that fortress type of financial structure I talked earlier, will survive through it. Like the way we always plan these things, say my part, the worst that happens is we get caught with a few spec units from the world, because we don't borrow on the land. Like, when I was a Minto, the founder of Minto, one of the founders, but he said, it's pretty tough to go broke if you're not borrowing. So if you don't lever the land and a good piece of the infrastructure, what's the worst that happens if the world shuts down? You know, you sell off some spec units and you pay taxes and you wait till the world returns. If you got high debt, chances are you're going to have severe problems, regardless of your size. Matter of fact, sometimes the bigger you are, the more your problems. But I think there's great opportunity. Very excited about it. I don't see stop doing it. My wife asked me, what am I going to do? Sit home. But I like it. And it's fun and it's retail. The difference is if you're going to be a home builder, don't plan on spending all your weekends at the beach or on a boat. Because we're retailers and our customers are largely there on weekends. You know, so the only way you really learn and hear and see is seeing your customers, your projects. You know, in the old days we used to have a lot of projects to drive around and see. Now, there's not much to see. You go here, you go there. I can do it all in half an hour. You know, but in the old days it'd be take a half a day. But that's the only way you're really learning. You know, if you're in an office, nobody's looking at office space on a Saturday or Sunday. If you're in retail, it's different. If you're in home building, it's a different lifestyle if you want to do it right. What else do we have?
So you just fish Monday through Friday then?
Pardon?
You fish Monday through Friday?
No, I eat fish. I just eat it, as you can see. I eat fish. One of the things, like style-wise, you know, I showed you the Centra units. Remember, that we had to do them very simply. It was a very, very tough market. And I wanted to get away from the old Mediterranean heavy colors, sienna, et cetera, et cetera. Here, because we're in the historic districts, my architect, we put together this large book of pictures of homes in all the neighborhood area. And it's very reminiscent of what you would see in Coral Gables from the 20s and 30s, and West Palm and parts of Victoria Park. You see that old Florida historical architecture. And that's what we really made it look like. And frankly, there's nothing like it. It went over extraordinarily well. Went over very, very well. And so as the prices move up like anything, you know, you got to put more style, more energy, more attention to detail. Now we're going to take the same exterior architecture to the new project in Pembroke. People say, well, why would you take it to Pembroke? You know, there's not really much historical architecture there, but I always like to theme the communities. So if any of you live in Pembroke or Miramar, you know, we did Towngate and we did Riviera Isles. So we did Riviera Isles. We said, well, you know, most of the markets, or a lot of big piece of the market's coming from Miami. What's the prestige area of Miami? Coral Gables. You know, most people that live in there, they know Coral Gables, they've been through Coral Gables, they like Coral Gables. So we picked up a lot of those architectural details. Here, really the same thought process. It's the last wave of, from let's say 2000, you know, 9, 10, 12, you had a lot of that clean, simple Santa Barbara architecture, which we did in the mid-2000s. You know, very light tan stucco, soft white stucco, simple roof like you see at Montera. I didn't want it to be like another look-alike or just like another. I said, if we take this architecture down there, it's very refreshing. Let's be candid. It's a very mixed market with a very strong Hispanic overtone and a very strong Dade County overtone. So again, it will relate to areas like Coral Gables, and I think it's going to be very refreshing and so forth down in Pembroke. So that's what we're going to do down there. Yeah.
When working or doing a joint venture with Styles, how was that in terms of decision making and the process of design and development itself? You know, pre-construction?
Well, they listened to what I said.
Exactly. I mean, did they?
It's a very unique relationship. There's tremendous mutual respect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but did you ever butt heads in terms of?
No. Terry brought me in, and we did the deal, because he's acknowledged that Jessica's heard him say it many times. With everything they do, they're not residential home builders. They're doing a lot of vertical rental now and everything else, but they don't do that. If they did that, if they did residential home builders, they didn't need me there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like he said to me afterwards, he understood that they had to effectively leave the decision-making
To the experience.
to the home building team, to myself, and like a lot of people think Styles did the actual construction. We did it because it's a different construction team you use on low-rise residential and a totally different set of trades than you would use on any of these buildings that he's building down here or right there on Las Olas, it's Crane or.
So you were technically the developer partner,
Building
GC,
partner, correct, yeah.
and the GC, you know.
He had a license to company though. But yeah, we were the development GC. They were effectively the financial. We had, they did, in that case, they did the accounting. We had partners meetings monthly. They had a, what I would call a liaison, one designated person that we would deal with on a daily, weekly basis. Actually, you're a boss now,